He broke world records, conquered Hollywood, revolutionized aviation, and reshaped an entire city. Yet in the end, he vanished from the world he helped build. Howard Hughes was once the purest expression of American ambition, brilliant, daring, impossibly wealthy. A man who believed that with enough intelligence, precision, and control, nothing was out of reach. Not the sky, not technology, not even human limitation. But genius has a shadow, and in Hughes's case, that shadow grew so vast it eventually consumed the man himself. To understand how that happened, we have to go back long before the locked hotel rooms, the handwritten notes, or the isolation, to a childhood shaped equally by invention and fear. Howard Robard Hughes Jr. was born on December 24, 1905, in Houston, Texas, into a family already touched by innovation. His father was a successful inventor whose drill bit transformed oil drilling. His mother was deeply anxious about illness, obsessively protective, and constantly worried about contamination. From an early age, Howard learned two powerful lessons: that machines could be perfected and that the world was dangerous. He was a quiet, introverted child, more comfortable with tools than with people. He dismantled radios, built engines, and taught himself engineering principles while other children played outside. But his emotional world was unstable. His mother's constant fear of germs and disease left a deep mark, instilling habits of control and avoidance that would follow him for life. Tragedy struck early. When Howard was 16, his mother died suddenly. 2 years later, his father passed away as well. At just 18 years old, Howard Hughes was an orphan and the sole heir to a vast industrial fortune. Most young men would have retreated into guardianship or conservatorship. Hughes did the opposite. He took control. Determined to shape his own destiny, Hughes moved to Hollywood in the 1920s. He didn't come chasing fame. He came to build something flawless. Film to him was not art, it was engineering, and he demanded perfection. His most ambitious early project, Hell's Angels, nearly destroyed him. Hughes obsessed over realism, scrapping entire scenes, reshooting endlessly, replacing silent footage with sound, and insisting on real aerial combat sequences. He piloted aircraft himself during filming, risking his life repeatedly. The budget exploded, the pressure mounted. When Hell's Angels finally premiered in 1930, it was a sensation. Hughes had proved his point. Excellence, no matter the cost, was worth it. But Hollywood was only one arena. Aviation was his true obsession. In the 1930s, Hughes transitioned from investor to innovator. He designed aircraft, test-flew prototypes, and pushed the limits of speed and endurance. In 1935, he set a world airspeed record in the Hughes H-1 Racer. 2 years later, he flew around the world in under 4 days, capturing global attention. He was young, handsome, wealthy, and fearless. The press loved him. America saw him as the embodiment of modern progress. Behind the scenes, however, Howard was beginning to unravel. His perfectionism intensified. His fear of germs deepened. He withdrew from social contact, issuing increasingly precise instructions to staff: how objects were to be handled, how doors were to be opened, how rooms were to be cleaned. Control was no longer a preference, it was a necessity. World War II amplified everything. Hughes promised revolutionary aircraft to the U.S. military, including the X-11 reconnaissance plane and the massive H-4 Hercules, later mocked as the Spruce Goose. Delays, secrecy, and Hughes's relentless micromanagement turned both projects into public controversies. Then came the crash. In 1946, while test flying the X-11 over Los Angeles, Hughes lost control. The plane slammed into a residential neighborhood. He survived, but barely. His body was shattered. Burns, crushed ribs, punctured lung, permanent injuries that would leave him in chronic pain for the rest of his life. Confined to hospital beds, Hughes became dependent on painkillers, the reliance that slowly tightened its grip. The crash marked a turning point. The fearless pilot who once chased danger now retreated from the world. In 1947, Hughes faced accusations of war profiteering before a U.S. Senate committee. Many expected his downfall. Instead, Hughes surprised everyone. Calm, sharp, and defiant, he dismantled the accusations and emerged publicly vindicated. It was one of his final moments in the spotlight. That same year, he piloted the Spruce Goose on its only flight, lifting the massive aircraft briefly off the water. Critics scoffed. Hughes considered it proof that he had been right all along. But the man who once loved public triumph now began to disappear. Over the next decades, Hughes withdrew into near-total isolation. He sealed himself into darkened hotel rooms, communicated through handwritten notes, and avoided human contact as much as possible. He controlled empires, airlines, casinos, real estate, without ever appearing in public. He acquired RKO Pictures, running it erratically. He took control of Trans World Airlines, modernizing its fleet while simultaneously destabilizing the company through indecision and lawsuits. His brilliance and dysfunction coexisted uneasily, each amplifying the other. His personal habits became extreme. He avoided haircuts and nail trimming. He hoarded tissues. He fixated on routines, numbers, and repetition. Those around him were both caretakers and captives, bound by secrecy and fear of dismissal. And yet, even in isolation, Hughes reshaped history. In 1966, he quietly began purchasing hotels and casinos in Las Vegas. At the time, the city was still closely associated with organized crime. Hughes's investments helped shift Las Vegas towards corporate ownership and legitimacy, permanently changing its future. But his own future was narrowing. Years of medication dependency, malnutrition, and isolation ravaged his body. He became skeletal, frail, paranoid. He moved constantly from hotel to hotel, country to country, fearing germs, exposure, and imagined threats. By the early 1970s, Howard Hughes had become a legend without a presence. Some believed he was already dead. Others imagined him as a shadowy puppet master controlling industries from behind the scenes. The truth was far more tragic. On April 5, 1976, while being flown from Mexico to Houston for medical treatment, Howard Hughes died at the age of 70. He weighed barely 90 pounds. His appearance was so altered that fingerprints were required to confirm his identity. His death triggered one of the most complex legal battles in American history. With no signed will, his fortune became the subject of endless claims and lawsuits. But money was never the real measure of his legacy. Howard Hughes had transformed aviation, redefined Hollywood ambition, accelerated the modernization of Las Vegas, and pushed technology forward through sheer force of will. He had also demonstrated the cost of believing that control could conquer chaos. Howard Hughes conquered skies, industries, and empires, but he never escaped his own fear. And that is why his story endures, not as a cautionary tale of madness or brilliance alone, but as a profoundly human story about ambition, vulnerability, and the price of trying to control the uncontrollable.